Am I the a-hole for breaking up with my girlfriend after she rejected my proposal twice? Alright, so let me tell you how it all went down. I've been dating this girl, Kiara, for about 4 years now. I mean, she's amazing, funny, smart, really chill, and we've always just clicked. You know when you meet someone and everything kind of falls into place without you forcing it? Yeah, it was like that with her. We met at this random party our friends dragged us to, and honestly, neither of us even wanted to be there. We were both standing around looking bored out of our minds, but somehow we ended up talking, and once we started, we didn't stop. We spent the whole night getting into stupid conversations about bad movies and weird child memories, the kind of stuff you only share when you feel unexpectedly comfortable with someone. Anyway, fast forward a couple of years, and I knew I wanted to marry her. 2 years in, I was pretty sure she was the one, or whatever people call it. I started saving up for a ring, thinking I'd do it when I was in a better spot financially. I had this whole plan in my head that once I was more stable, I'd propose. It felt like the responsible thing to do. Plus, I didn't want to half-ass it. Kiara deserved a nice proposal, and I didn't want to be stressing about money right after asking her to spend her life with me. So last year, after working my ass off and finally feeling like I had my life together, or at least not completely falling apart, I decided it was time. I was so ready to take that next step. I was genuinely hyped about it. And it wasn't just me. Kiara and I had talked about marriage before. She always seemed into it, saying she couldn't see herself with anyone else and that she wanted to build a life together. So I felt like I wasn't walking into this blind. It honestly seemed like we were on the same page. I planned the proposal for the beach where we had our first date. We're both low-key people, so I wanted it to be just us. No big public scene, no fancy restaurant with everyone watching. Just something personal. I remember that first date like it was yesterday. We didn't have much money back then, so we packed a cheap picnic, grabbed a couple of drinks, and sat on the sand talking until it got too cold to stay. It was simple and it was perfect. So on the day of the proposal, I was nervous as hell. I mean, I was sure she'd say yes, but it's still a big deal, right? I had the ring, planned the whole day, made sure we got to the beach at sunset because Kiara's always said how much she loves sunsets. The weather was perfect, one of those evenings where the sky turns pink and purple like it's showing off. It almost felt like a sign that this was the right moment. We got there, and I tried to play it cool, but inside I was freaking out a little. We were walking along the shore, talking about random stuff, and then I just stopped. I took her hand and started telling her how much she meant to me. I told her I loved her, that I couldn't imagine my life without her. Then I got down on one knee, pulled out the ring, and asked her to marry me. Here's the part that threw me off. She looked at me, really looked at me, and didn't say anything for what felt like forever. Then she said, "I want to marry you, but not right now." I was like, what? My brain couldn't process that at first. I just stood there, still holding the ring, probably looking like an idiot, trying to understand what she just said. I want to marry you, but not right now. What does that even mean? I felt my heart drop, man. She said she wasn't ready for all the engagement stuff yet, that she wasn't into the idea of being engaged and needed more time. She didn't really explain beyond that, just said it wasn't the right moment for her. It hit me like a punch in the gut. But I didn't want to make a scene, so I forced a smile and said, "Yeah, okay, I get it." Truthfully, I didn't get it at all. We had talked about marriage. She had told me she wanted to be with me forever. And there I was, putting myself out there only to get what felt like a half-ass rejection. Still, I figured maybe she just needed more time. I had waited a year to get my own life together before proposing, so maybe she just wasn't in that place yet. I convinced myself it wasn't that big of a deal and tried to shake it off. We spent the rest of the evening pretending everything was fine. But it wasn't. The whole vibe had shifted, and I was stuck in my own head, wondering. I kept asking myself if I had messed up, if I should have waited longer, if it had been the wrong moment, if maybe I didn't know her as well as I thought I did. Those questions ran in circles in my head, but I never actually asked her any of them because I didn't want to seem like I was pushing her. At the time, I convinced myself I was doing the mature thing by giving her space. I thought I was respecting her feelings. Looking back, though, I wish I had asked more questions. I should have just looked at her and asked what she meant by, "not right now." Was it me? Was it something else? Was she even serious about wanting to get married someday? Instead of digging deeper, I let it slide. I told myself it wasn't a big deal, that relationships aren't always perfectly timed, that love means patience. So I spent the next year pretending everything was fine. On the surface, it kind of was. We were still us. But underneath, that moment stayed with me. Every time marriage came up in conversation, whether it was a friend getting engaged or someone joking about weddings, I'd feel that sting again, sharp and quiet. Still, I kept telling myself she'd come around. We were happy, weren't we? We went on trips, hung out with friends, did all the normal couple stuff. Nothing seemed broken, so I figured it was fine. She just wasn't ready yet. She'd get there eventually, right? That's what I kept repeating to myself. That's how the first proposal went. Not how I imagined it, not even close, but I let it go because I loved her. I didn't want to pressure her into something she wasn't ready for. What I didn't realize at the time was that those 3 words, "not right now," would grow into something much bigger later on. After that first proposal, a whole year passed. Things weren't bad, but they were different. Sometimes it felt like we had both silently agreed to never talk about that night again. I honestly thought we'd sit down after a few weeks and have a real conversation about it, clear the air or something. But that conversation never came. And if I'm being honest, I didn't bring it up either. I didn't want to look pushy or desperate, so we just kept going. Same routines, same laughs, same shared life. On the outside, everything looked normal. But as more time passed, I started thinking maybe this just wasn't going to happen. Why wasn't she ready? And why couldn't she give me a clearer reason than not yet? We were almost 30. We had been together for 4 years. At some point, you either know or you don't. That thought kept creeping in. Even so, I started planning another proposal. Deep down, I still believed she wanted forever with me, just like she used to say. Maybe she really had just needed more time. Maybe I needed to make it feel bigger, more special. The first proposal had been low-key and personal, just the 2 of us at the beach. This time, I wondered if maybe she wanted something a little more elaborate. So I started thinking about how to step it up. I decided to involve some of our friends. Not a huge public spectacle with strangers staring, because that's not my vibe and I know it's not Kiara's either. But I thought having our closest friends nearby might make it more meaningful. Maybe being surrounded by people we both loved would make her feel safe and excited enough to say yes. So I started planning. I booked this really nice botanical garden with this beautiful fountain area, the kind with huge roses everywhere and lush greenery, super romantic without being over the top. I knew she'd love it because she's obsessed with nature and plants. She has like 20 plants in our apartment that I'm constantly on the verge of accidentally killing. So I thought, yeah, this is it. This is the perfect spot. I got a few of our friends to help with the setup. The plan was simple but thoughtful. We'd go to dinner first, just the 2 of us, at a nice restaurant nearby. Then afterward, we'd walk over to the garden, where our friends would have everything ready. Roses, candles, the whole thing. I pictured it so clearly in my head. It was going to be perfect. I was sure of it this time. The night finally came, and I tried to stay calm, but inside I was freaking out all over again. I couldn't stop thinking about last year, about standing on that beach holding a ring while she said no. I kept praying this wouldn't end the same way. I didn't think I could handle that again. Still, I felt hopeful. Maybe too hopeful. Dinner went great. We were both in good moods. We laughed, shared some wine, and for a while it felt like old times. Like there was no tension, no unanswered questions hanging between us. After we finished eating, I casually suggested we take a walk through the botanical garden. She smiled and agreed, completely unaware of what was waiting for her. When we reached the fountain, everything was exactly how I imagined it. Roses everywhere, candles lighting the path, the soft glow reflecting off the water. It looked incredible. Our friends had done an amazing job. I take her hand and we start walking toward the fountain, and at this point my heart is pounding like crazy, but I force myself to keep it together. We reach the spot, everything glowing the way I pictured it, and I launch into this whole speech about how much I love her, how I can't imagine spending my life with anyone else, how I'm ready to take that next step with her. She's tearing up while I'm talking, and in my head I'm thinking, this is it. This is the moment. So I get down on one knee again, pull out the ring, and ask her to marry me. And then she says the same thing. Not just yet. I honestly couldn't believe it. I just stood there for a second, trying to figure out if I'd heard her right. Not just yet. Again. Felt like I'd been punched straight in the gut. The first time I told myself it wasn't a big deal, that she just needed time. But this time was different. It hurt way more. I slowly stood up, trying to stay calm, but I had to ask her why. What's stopping you? I tried to keep my voice steady, but I was frustrated as hell. She looked at me with tears in her eyes and repeated the same explanation from last year. She wanted to make sure things would work out. She wasn't ready yet. And that's when something in me shifted from hurt to anger. I asked her straight up if there was someone else. Maybe someone was influencing her. Maybe her parents didn't approve. Maybe a friend was in her ear. I didn't know. None of it made sense to me. We had been together for 4 years. How could she still not know if she wanted to marry me? She shook her head and said no. It wasn't anyone else. She just needed more time. And in that moment, everything kind of crashed down on me at once. I had waited a whole year since the first proposal. I had put in all this effort to make this one perfect. I truly believed we were in a better place. And yet there I was, standing in the middle of this beautiful garden, being told not yet all over again. I felt stupid. Like, how many times am I supposed to ask? How long am I supposed to wait? I told her exactly that. I told her that if after 4 years she still wasn't sure, then I didn't know what else I could do. I couldn't keep waiting around while she tried to figure it out. It felt like I was putting my life on hold for someone who wasn't even certain they wanted me in theirs for the long haul. She didn't say much in response. She just asked for more time again. And that's when I snapped. I didn't yell. I didn't make a scene. But something in me shut down. I told her I can't do this anymore. I love you, but I'm not going to keep putting myself out there if you're just going to keep saying no. I saw her expression change right away. She realized I was serious. She started crying, begging me not to leave. And then she said it. Fine, I'll marry you. Please don't go. And that was the part that hurt the most. It felt like she was only willing to say yes now because she saw I was ready to walk away. It didn't feel real. It didn't feel like she actually wanted to marry me. It felt like she was scared of losing me. And that's not the kind of yes I wanted. I didn't even respond. I just turned and walked away. I didn't know what else to say. My head was spinning. My chest felt tight. And all I wanted was to get out of there. After that second proposal, I knew something had to change. I couldn't go back to pretending everything was fine like I did the first time. But for a couple of days, I didn't know what that change looked like. My mind was all over the place. 4 years is a long time to be with someone. It's not easy to just throw that away. I wasn't sure if I was ready to let it all go. But at the same time, I couldn't shake the feeling that she was never going to be ready. And if she wasn't ready now, after everything, then when would she be? The day after the proposal, we barely spoke. She stayed in the guest room, which had kind of become our unspoken system for handling fights. We'd give each other space, cool off, and usually by the next day we'd sit down and talk it through. But this time was different. I didn't want to talk. I didn't even know what I would say if we did. I needed time to process what had just happened. A couple of days passed, and I realized I wasn't even angry anymore. I was just disappointed. You know that feeling when you've poured everything you have into something and it still falls short? That's where I was. I thought I had done everything right. Or at least I tried to. And it still wasn't enough. It sucked. There's no better way to put it. By the end of the week, we finally sat down to talk. She was the one who initiated it. She asked me to sit with her on the couch and said we needed to figure things out. And she was right. We couldn't keep avoiding it. So I told her exactly how I felt. I told her I couldn't keep waiting around while she tried to figure out whether or not she wanted to marry me. I said that if she still didn't know after 4 years together, then I wasn't sure she ever would. She just sat there, quiet, for what felt like forever. The silence between us was heavy, almost suffocating. Then she finally said, I do love you. I want to be with you. I just don't think I'm ready for marriage yet. And there it was again, that same damn phrase. Not ready. I could feel the frustration rising in my chest all over again, but I forced myself to stay calm. Why not? I asked. What's stopping you? We've been together for 4 years. We've talked about getting married before. You said you wanted this. She sighed, and I could see she was struggling to put her feelings into words. I don't know, she said. It's a big commitment, and I don't want to rush into something I'm not sure about. That's when it hit me. She wasn't unsure about marriage. She was unsure about me. Not us in some vague way. Not the relationship as a concept. Me. And honestly, that realization hurt more than I expected it to. I could understand someone needing time before getting married. But not being sure about me after 4 years? That was something else entirely. I leaned back against the couch, trying to process it, feeling like the air had been knocked out of me. I looked at her and asked her straight up, "Are you ever going to be sure?" She met my eyes, and for the first time since we'd started talking, she didn't have an answer. She just stared down at her hands, silent. That silence told me everything. That's when I knew. I stood up and told her I couldn't keep doing this. I told her I loved her, but if she wasn't sure about me by now, I didn't think she ever would be. And I wasn't going to wait around forever hoping she'd change her mind. She started crying, and yeah, it was hard to watch. I never wanted to hurt her, but I also couldn't keep pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. She begged me not to leave. She kept saying, "I'll marry you, I promise. Just give me a little more time." But that was the problem. I didn't want her to marry me because she was afraid of losing me. I wanted her to want it. I wanted her to feel excited about building a future with me. And she didn't. She just looked scared of being alone. That wasn't the kind of marriage I wanted, and I wasn't going to settle for that. So I told her I needed to leave. I packed a bag that night and went to stay at a friend's place for a few days. I told myself we both needed space to cool off and think about what we really wanted. But deep down, I already knew it was over. There was no coming back from that conversation. The next few days were rough. I kept replaying everything in my head, trying to figure out where it all went wrong. Was it me? Was it her? Was it both of us? I honestly didn't know. All I knew was that it didn't feel right anymore. The relationship had turned into something it was never supposed to be, and no matter how much I wanted to fix it, I couldn't. That week she called me a few times. At first, I didn't answer because I wasn't ready to talk. Eventually, though, I picked up. We had one of those awkward conversations where neither of you really knows what to say. She kept asking if I would come home, and I kept saying I needed more time to think. The irony wasn't lost on me. Me asking for more time after being so angry at her for doing the same. But it wasn't the same thing. I wasn't trying to decide whether I loved her. I was trying to figure out how to let go. Then the text started. And man, the texts. Her friends, her parents, even some of our mutual friends started blowing up my phone. Apparently she told everyone I dumped her because she wasn't ready to get married. And of course, most of them took her side. They called me immature, selfish, a jerk for throwing away a 4-year relationship just because she wasn't ready for the next step. But what they didn't understand, what none of them seemed to get, was that it wasn't about the wedding. It wasn't about some date or a ring or a ceremony. It was about her not being sure about me. If someone isn't sure about you after 4 years, how much longer are you supposed to wait? 5 years? 10? It felt like everyone was completely missing the point. The strange part was that not all of my friends saw it that way. A few of them actually told me they understood where I was coming from. They weren't exactly taking sides, but they weren't blaming me either. They knew what I had put into that relationship. They had seen how much effort I made, how long I waited, how hard I tried to make it work. And hearing that helped, even just a little. It reminded me that I wasn't crazy for walking away, that I think that's when I finally accepted that it was over, that I wasn't going back, that no amount of begging or promises was going to change the fact that she didn't see a future with me. Not really. About a week later, I went back to our place to get the rest of my stuff. Kiara wasn't there, and honestly I was relieved because I didn't want to deal with another emotional conversation. I packed my things, left my key on the counter, and walked out for the last time, and just like that it was over. For years done. And yeah, it hurt like hell, but for the first time in a long time I felt like I made the right choice. I wasn't going to settle for someone who wasn't sure about me, I deserved better than that. Update 1. So after I packed my stuff and walked out of the apartment for the last time, I thought things would be kind of easier, like I expected to feel this massive weight lift off my shoulders or something. But instead everything felt heavy. I don't know how else to describe it, but it's like the breakup didn't really hit me until I was back at my friend Kyle's place, just sitting on his couch with my duffel bag at my feet. Kyle's a good guy, one of those friends who doesn't ask too many questions and just hands you a soda when you need it. He didn't try to pry or give me advice, he just let me crash at his place, and we spent most of the nights playing video games or watching dumb movies. It helped for a bit, it really did. But then the messages started rolling in again and I couldn't escape the reality of what was happening. Kiara texted me almost every day. At first it was the usual "can we talk" and "I miss you" messages, which I kind of expected, but then she started getting frustrated. I didn't answer her calls, so she'd send these long texts about how I was being unreasonable for not wanting to work things out. She kept saying stuff like, "You're throwing everything away over one small thing and you'll regret this." Pissed me off, to be honest, like I'm throwing everything away. I didn't know how to respond without starting another argument, so I just didn't. Ignoring her texts wasn't easy though. Every time my phone buzzed, I'd feel this pit in my stomach. Part of me still cared about her, of course I did, but I knew deep down that this wasn't something we could fix. I had to keep reminding myself that this wasn't just about marriage, it was about her not being sure about me, about us. The thing is, when you spend 4 years with someone, you get used to having them around. Even if things were rocky towards the end, Kiara had been a huge part of my life for so long that I didn't really know what to do with myself now that she wasn't there. I kept finding myself scrolling through old photos of us on my phone, looking at all these memories we'd made. It's stupid, I know, but it was like I was trying to figure out where things went wrong. Like, was there something I missed? Some sign that things were falling apart before the proposals. I spent way too much time thinking about that. Kyle told me I was overanalyzing it, and yeah, maybe he was right, but it was hard not to. When you invest that much time into someone, you want to believe that it all meant something, that it wasn't just a waste of time. After about a week of silence from Kiara, I started getting messages from her friends, and man, they were brutal. Some of them were straight up calling me a jerk for leaving her. One even said, "You're just scared of commitment," which is rich considering I literally proposed twice. Another one of her friends wrote this long message about how I was being selfish for not giving Kiara more time to figure things out. Apparently 4 years wasn't enough. But here's the thing, I know I said I wouldn't use that phrase. Her friend Ashley actually sent me a message saying you were just a safe bet for her. She'll find someone better now, like damn. I didn't respond to that one either, but it stuck with me. Was I just some backup plan for her? It wasn't like Kiara ever said anything like that, but the more I thought about it, the more I wondered if she was waiting for someone else, someone better, whatever that means. Meanwhile, my friends were giving me their own opinions. Kyle, as usual, kept it simple. "Dude, you're better off. If she can't decide after 4 years, she's never going to." My buddy Matt was a bit more vocal. He thought I should have left sooner, like after the first rejection. He kept saying, "Why'd you give her a second chance, man? She made it clear the first time." I didn't really have an answer for that. I guess I just didn't want to give up on her that easily. Maybe that makes me sound stupid, but I wanted to believe things could still work out back then. It was a weird mix of emotions. I was angry, frustrated, but also sad, and part of me couldn't shake the guilt. Every time I saw her friend's text, I'd think, am I the bad guy here? I kept questioning myself even though I knew I did what I had to do. Breaking up wasn't some knee-jerk reaction, it was something I thought about for a long time. But still, when you're getting hit from all sides with people telling you you're the problem, it messes with your head. About 2 weeks after the breakup, I finally got a text from Kiara that wasn't angry. It was simple. "I understand now. I'm sorry. I hope you find someone who makes you happy." That was the last message I got from her. No more calls, no more texts. It felt weirdly final, and I wasn't sure how to feel about it. On one hand, I was relieved that the constant back and forth was over. On the other hand, it felt like the last thread between us had been cut. I wish I could say that's when everything got easier, but honestly it didn't. I still had moments where I'd think about her, about what we had and what could have been, but over time those moments got fewer and fewer. The more space I had from her, the more I realized that breaking up was the right choice. It hurt like hell, but it was necessary. I didn't want to be stuck in a relationship where I was always waiting for her to be ready. Eventually, I moved out of Kyle's place and got my own apartment. It wasn't anything fancy, just a one-bedroom in a decent part of town, but it was mine. I started focusing on myself more, hanging out with friends, hitting the gym, just trying to get my life back on track, and slowly things started feeling normal again. I'm not saying I'm over it 100%, but I'm in a better place now. Looking back, I realized that I deserve someone who's sure about me, not someone who needs years to decide if I'm worth it. It's still a tough pill to swallow, but I've accepted it. So yeah, that's the aftermath. It wasn't pretty, and I'm still dealing with some of the fallout, but I think I'm finally moving on. Update 2. So after months of adjusting to life on my own, I felt like I was finally getting the hang of things. It's not like everything magically got better or something, but things were just easier. I wasn't waking up every morning with that knot in my stomach anymore. Kiara wasn't on my mind all the time, and I wasn't constantly checking my phone to see if she texted. I had my routine, my space, and honestly it was nice to have my own place again. I could leave dishes in the sink if I wanted, blast music at 1 a.m., or just sit in silence with a soda on the balcony. No one to answer to. Felt good. Work was going fine. I wasn't one of those people who throws themselves into their job after a breakup or whatever, but having something to focus on definitely helped. I didn't think about anything else when I was knee-deep in projects or sitting in meetings. I think that was my biggest win, just being able to focus on something without getting distracted by thoughts of the past. But as anyone will tell you, just when you think you're moving on, life has this way of throwing something at you to test if you're really over it. I was at a bar with Kyle one Friday night. We hadn't done a proper hangout in a while because we'd both been busy with work, so we decided to grab a few drinks, shoot some pool, and catch up. The night was going great. Laughs, beers, trash talking over pool, the usual. It was just one of those nights where you're not thinking about anything too heavy, just enjoying the moment. Then out of nowhere, Kyle gets this weird look on his face while we're playing. I'm about to line up a shot when he says, dude, Kiara's here." I froze. My mind went blank for a second, and I just stood there with the pool cue in my hand, not knowing what to do. I hadn't seen her in months. Yeah, I knew she was seeing someone new, but it's one thing to hear about it through the grapevine and another thing to see it with your own eyes. I tried to play it cool though. I didn't want to freak out or anything. I mean, it's a small town and it was bound to happen at some point, right? I took a deep breath and casually glanced over, and there she was, sitting at the bar with a guy. They were laughing, having a drink, looking like they were having a good time. And you know what? It didn't hit me the way I thought it would. Yeah, my heart kind of sank at first, but it wasn't the gut-wrenching feeling I was expecting. I just stood there staring for a second, then looked back at Kyle, who was watching me like I was about to lose it. I shook my head and said, "It's fine, man. Let's keep playing." And that was it. No big dramatic moment, no meltdown. We just went back to the game, and I did my best to act like I hadn't just seen my ex with someone else. It wasn't easy though. Every time I looked up, there they were, laughing, talking, looking happy. It wasn't jealousy exactly, more like this weird mix of nostalgia and relief, like part of me missed her, but another part of me was glad it wasn't me sitting at that bar with her anymore. Kyle noticed I was kind of quiet after that, and he asked if I was cool. I told him I was fine, but deep down I felt this weird emptiness. Not because I wanted Kiara back, but because it hit me that this chapter of my life was really over. Seeing her with someone else was like the final nail in the coffin. It wasn't just me moving on, it was her too, and that stung a little, even if I knew it was for the best. We finished up at the bar and decided to call it a night. Kyle kept asking if I wanted to grab another drink or hit another spot, but I told him I was tired and just wanted to head home. I think he knew I wasn't really in the mood for more socializing. When I got home, I sat on my balcony with a soda, just staring out at the trees, thinking about how much had changed in the last few months. A year ago, I was planning a future with Kiara. Now she was just a memory, someone I used to know. It was a lot to take in, but at the same time I felt this sense of closure. Seeing her with someone else, happy, made me realize that it was time to really let go, and that's what I did. I sat there on the balcony for a long time, just thinking about everything that had happened, and for the first time in a long time I wasn't angry or sad or confused. I was just okay with it. Life goes on, and so do people. Kiara had moved on, and so had I. It wasn't some dramatic revelation or anything, just a quiet acceptance that things were the way they were. The next morning, I woke up feeling lighter. It sounds cheesy, but it was like this big weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I wasn't holding on to any anger or regret anymore. Kiara was part of my past, and now it was time to focus on my future. Over the next few weeks, I started putting myself out there again. I'm not saying I jumped back into the dating scene or anything. I wasn't ready for that yet, but I stopped avoiding it. I went out more, talked to people, started thinking about what I wanted for myself, not just in a relationship, but in life in general. It's funny how breakups make you re-evaluate everything. It wasn't just about moving on from Kiara, it was about figuring out who I was and what I wanted from life, and I realized that I still had a lot to figure out, but that was okay. I wasn't in a rush. For the first time in a long time, I was content with where I was. So yeah, that's pretty much where things stand now. I'm moving forward, slowly but surely. It's not perfect, but life never is, and honestly, I'm okay with that. I'm learning to take things as they come, to not stress too much about the future, and to just enjoy where I am right now. Who knows what's next? I guess I'll just have to wait and see.